20 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yay, let's go. Yeah, we don't have any snow left. You still got some snow where you're at? I see people sending in your snowmen and stuff. I'm really jealous. But hey, at least it wasn't a tragedy. It could have been like Snowmageddon or whatever. Some of y'all got to have some fun. Some of us are just a little jealous. That's all. But some big news happened this morning that I think you might be the first to hear about it from me. Donald Trump explained. Jeremy Rosenthal is going to be my first guest. He's from TexasDefenseFirm.com. I'm not sure if I've ever seen this. I bet you have. But he was found guilty and he was sentenced to nothing.
Yeah, he got a big nothing burger.
What's that officially called again?
Okay, in New York State, it is called an unconditional discharge. We don't have that in Texas.
Sounds like a symptom.
Yeah, right. We could kind of stay all day on unconditional discharge, but the short end of it is that they hit you on the head with a frying pan and they say, "Get out of our lives," and that's it. And yeah, we don't have that in Texas. That's why we don't hear a lot about it here.
So what the heck is this provision even for? What's the point of finding someone guilty if you're going to say, okay, you get nothing? Like, I understand jury nullification, where like if a jury decides that, but did a judge decide this?
That's right. In New York State, so the way a criminal proceeding is what is called bifurcated. There are two parts. There's the guilt innocence part, and then there's the punishment part. In Texas, all of our crimes have a range. For instance, a DWI is a Class B misdemeanor. It's punishable up to 180 days jail and a fine not to exceed $2,000. If you are found guilty, the judge has to, by law, sentence you to at least 1 day and at least $1 of a fine. Now, he can probate that, and there's all sorts of things. Actually, I think it's 72 hours. But he can probate that 72 hours. So in New York State, the judge can basically just sort of hit you with the indignity. There are several things that come with this, right, that Donald Trump is probably not going to have an issue with. One of them being firearm ownership. If you're a felon, then that's gonna inhibit your Second Amendment rights. It can inhibit It can inhibit international travel. Although I think anywhere he's going to go is going to find their way around those things. There are ramifications for being a felon.
Well, I was trying to look this one up for you, Jeremy, to try and impress you, since you're the lawyer. He will still be able to vote, I think, because in Florida, as long as you've completed your entire sentence, and that's everything, parole or probation or any form of supervision or ankle monitor, as long as you paid all your fines, your court costs, your fees, and restitution, you get your voting rights back. And since he didn't get any fees or fines or supervision, probation, nothing, he can vote now?
Well, okay, if that's the law in Florida, yes. And Texas law is very similar. Once you have fulfilled your felony requirements, once you are no longer either under court or the Department of Corrections supervision, don't quote me on it. I think you've got to apply back with the Texas departments and the state, but you can have your voting rights restored in many states. And if Florida is one of those, then yes, he could vote.
Yeah, that's exactly. In Florida, they have a state clemency board. So just fill out a piece of paper with that. But why are we even kidding about that? Can't he just pardon himself in 10 days?
He is not the chief executive for the state of New York.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's right. They
yes.
changed these to state charges.
Yes, these are state charges. So no, he cannot. No, he couldn't grant himself, and Joe Biden couldn't do it either. The governor of the state of New York could. And the linchpin in all of this, because they did take this to the U.S. Supreme Court this week, and Judge Merchan, think of him what you will, did a very clever thing. He put in there, I'm going to give you this conditional discharge in a week or 10 days. And Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts were the swing votes, and they quoted that in their opinion to basically not step in, saying, look, you're not going to get anything anyway. We're not in constitutional crisis land. They're not going to take you into custody. You're appearing via Zoom. That's a pretty good indication you're not going to jail.
Okay, but so, Jeremy, that sounds like just a coward's way out.
How so?
Well, because now they don't have to go out and tell the public how they would have ruled on this, and so they can escape criticism and or praise.
Well, okay, good point. I'll tell you this. I will parry this at you, James. Before I go out and build my snowman outside, there's still enough time.
Lucky.
I do think this case is going to get back to the Supreme Court. So I don't know. I do think they're going to weigh in on this, but it's going to be circuitous.
Okay, so there's still an appeal process.
Yes, yes, and that's and that's also kind of part of the rationale here is
All
that
right.
is that okay? Just appeal it like any other case.
Okay, so then they've delayed having to make a judgment
Correct.
on it. Okay.
That's,
Well, that
that's
sounds
right.
less
That's right.
cowardice, and you did a good job explaining that. So what happens next? This isn't a done deal. What's going to happen?
It is, yeah. So now he appeals, and I think I read somewhere that he's tried to sue Judge Mershon. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. But yeah, now his normal appellate his normal appellate rights are intact, and he's going to go do that. So think of the trial as the football game, and think of the appeals as the replay booth. The appeals just kind of look at it. They read the transcripts and they go really on the judge's rulings. You've got this immunity opinion, which is sort of the first of its kind, and Judge Mershon had to go through. So you remember, we had the trial, what was it, May and June. The immunity opinion comes out the beginning of July afterwards.
Right.
And then Mershon came back and said, okay, in light of the Supreme Court, here's what I think this means. And now it's going to, in all certainty, go back through the New York courts. Maybe Trump gets relief there. And then once Trump is done with the New York courts, then he can go the federal route. This is in a year or two. And then they're going to come back and say, okay, did his immunity stop this? And it's a really muddy question because 2/3 of the things happened before he was in office. The things that happened after he was in office, it's just a mess.
But this seems so weird that it was so important that we had to get this case and we had to try this case and we had to speed it up and we had to do it all and we had to get all this evidence and damn the lack of precedent for so many of the twists and turns in this case. And then after they find him guilty, what do? Nothing? All this for nothing? I feel like I'm missing an important detail here, Jeremy.
This is life, man. Sometimes. So sometimes the ending is just sort of this way.
Well, have you ever seen this before?
No, well, we don't.
Unconditional discharge or its equivalent?
Yeah, sometimes you do. And listen, they had a hearing today, right? It was very brief, and Donald Trump got the microphone and he did his thing, and he talked about all the things that you would expect him to talk about, all the points that you would think he would make. He talked about Michael Cohen, and at one point he said this experience was really awful. Maybe we're even here, right? I mean, this wasn't fun for this guy either.
Heck no.
And when we talk, say, and going back to a DWI, for instance, that's a we handle a lot of those. We see a lot of those. I prosecuted a lot of them. Most people who get a DWI, the worst night of their life is that arrest, going to jail, being in the back of the squad car, sitting in confinement while your wife and family don't know. They think you may be dead in a ditch. That's the punishment. And then they can, whether or not the state of Texas comes and hurts you even worse, most people get the point right then and there. So a lot of times the punishment it can be gratuitous. And so I think that the old saying I've always heard is you may beat the rap, you're not going to beat the ride.
Yep. I think we've all heard that one. Jeremy Rosenthal, TexasDefenseFirm.com. Appreciate your legal expertise.
Have a great day.
TexasDefenseFirm.com. Coming up next, Jeremy did a great job kind of segueing into what I was going to do anyway. You're going to hear a clip, pretty much the last 50 seconds of Trump. He got to make a statement at the sentencing hearing today, and I think you'd be interested to hear that in about 4 minutes on the James Show. Your thoughts on the sentence of, what was it, unconditional discharge? Gross. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. So Trump had his sentencing this morning. And, you know, if we didn't have a little bit of snow somewhere in North Texas and fires raging and all kinds of other weird stuff going on, annexing Greenland and Canada or whatever, this would be a pretty huge story. Because on one hand, okay, he was found guilty of 34 counts. Remember that you had to hear about that for the last, 6 months? 34 counts. I mean, wait, how many counts was it again? Was it
a billion, million, 400 trillion, $600 billion?
Now, that's how many times you had to hear about it. And so now this case that was so important, we had to break the precedent of putting aside presidential immunity and going after a guy, a former president, for the first time in history. We had to break all of these other precedents. We had to take a national or a federal statute and prosecute it at the state level. We had to take a misdemeanor and somehow finagle it, mentally gymnastic it into a felony. All kinds of mental gymnastics were done over this. And it was so important that we get to it and that the American people know about it. And it was so bad, it was a disqualifier for president even. And then nothing? Nothing. That's it? Really? It was so bad. It was so bad that you had to try and upend a presidency in the middle of an election cycle. And this is what you got now? Nothing? Okay, one, good. He shouldn't be going into jail. Number two, isn't this what you would do if the whole thing was fake? Isn't this what you would do if the whole thing was just a setup? It was just a sham to stain your opponent with, hey, even if we can't send him straight up to jail, we can at least get tons and tons of negative headlines and negative press coverage and people saying bad things about him and ammo for his political foes and things that he has to answer for in interviews and press conferences and debates instead of talking about the real issues like the price of your groceries and foreign wars and what's going on with the currency and all kinds of actual important things that affect you. He had to spend so much time and effort dealing with this. He had to spend days in court instead of on the campaign trail dealing with this. He had to put his mental focus and energy on dealing with this case instead of being able to put his whole effort and focus on the campaign. This was nothing other than to trip him up. This is an admission. This is a tacit, implicit, I read the source last night, admission that this was all a sham. This was all political. This was all what we've learned to call correctly lawfare. I mean, this makes it beyond the shadow of a doubt. This is what you would do if it was lawfare. This isn't what you would do if it was legit charges. This isn't what you would do if it was so dang important that we had to interrupt our norms and an entire presidential cycle. Here was the last 50 seconds.
I got indicted over calling illegal.
Let me set this up a little better. This is about the last 50 seconds. He's at the sentencing hearing today, and right before the judge announces what the sentence is going to be, he gave about a 6-minute speech. And I'm not going to play the whole thing for you, but he went through the whole case, chapter and verse, from memory, without notes, just saying he did this, and this was wrong, and then this was changed, and this was wrong, and then this was changed, and this was wrong, and it's actually a federal statute and not a state statute, and it's actually a misdemeanor and not a felony, and then I wasn't given proper counsel with my lawyers, and then we didn't have the confidentiality, and like he went through all these bullet points on how this was a sham case, but his conclusion pretty much nails it.
I got indicted over calling a legal expense a legal expense. It was called a legal expense. I just want to say I think it's an embarrassment to New York, and New York has a lot of problems, but this is a great embarrassment. I believe that this and other cases that were brought, as you know, the DOJ is very involved. You have a gentleman sitting right there from the DOJ who was from the DOJ's office. He was also involved with the New York State Attorney General's case. And he went from there to here. He went around and did what he had to do. He got them to move on me. But in the meantime, I won the election in a massive landslide. And the people of this country understand what's gone on. This has been a weaponization of government. They call it lawfare. Never happened to any extent like this, but never happened in our country before. And I'd just like to exclaim that I was treated very, very unfairly. And I thank you very much.
I'd be throwing in some F-bombs or at least some 4-letter words. Give him credit for being a little more measured than most of us would be. I don't know. You're probably a better person than me and you'd be able to control yourself. I don't know if I'd be that cool about it, though. But the reporting around it, it's just atrocious. Like right now on CNN, Trump sentence with no penalty in hush money case. I hate this. Why do you have to twist everything? It's not hush money any more than any other non-disclosure agreement is hush money. You could call it a non-disclosure agreement. You call it an NDA case. You could call it a privacy case. You could call it concealment case. I mean, there's like 18 other adjectives you could call it. This hush money case. This was just nothing other. This was not a real crime, and they just admitted it. This was all to make negative headlines about Trump. Maybe put him in jail if they could get it done before the election. But this was all a sham, and they're admitting it. If you do this, you're admitting it. Because if it's not, I mean, if these are real 34 serious felonies, and we just can't let no one's above the law. Oh, what happened to all that? No one's above the law anymore? Well, he's not getting any. Doesn't this mean this is a sham? Doesn't this mean these were all fake cases? 34 felonies? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, updates on the California wildfires. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, happy Friday. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You know, I'm not the most empathetic guy in the world, but even me, my heart breaks for the people of California. And, they'll say like 32,100 homes have burned. And it's easy to forget that each one of those homes is pretty much someone's entire world. And, aside from the loss of, sticks and bricks, the emotional damage that comes from losing your home is going to be pretty brutal for a lot of these people. Dr. Patrick Porter is coming back on the James Show. He's the brain tap guy. Just how bad is it for people who, hey, audience. Just how bad is it for people who lose their home just in a disaster like this?
Well, I mean, it's going to have some lasting effect unless they do something to downregulate what's happening to their nervous system, because the brain, it likes certainty. And of course, you lose your home, you're going to lose all your certainty. You don't know what you're going to do next, and it puts your brain into what they call hypervigilance mode. And it would be like if you were trapped by a bear or something. What are you going to do? You're just going to react. You're going to make bad decisions. And so what happens is the brain needs a way to calm down, do some work. You can't just let it it can't really heal itself. It'll take years to do that. Explain that term. Did you say down-regulate? Yeah, when you go and work out, you're exercising really hard, your heart's beating, you have to sit down on the bench a little bit to calm down, get your body to go back to its normal state. Well, a lot of people don't realize that the body, all that pressure is restricting blood flow and circulation, not only to the brain, but to the extremities. People can start experiencing greater bouts of pain, which will then trigger anxiety, fear, frustration. And if you're already on the verge of, something like dementia or Alzheimer's or any of these other things, it's going to just exacerbate that or make that problem even worse when that happens. Yeah, I am always interested when I see the studies and surveys that show if you've had a traumatic event, the likelihood that you'll be ill over the next 12 calendar months goes up like 300%. Yeah, we have what we call the psychoimmune system, and what that means is your brain actually controls your immune system. So we have a thinking immune system. So they actually showed studies that when they show in the air the pollens, that 40% of people will have a pollen reaction even without having pollen present. So the brain can do things because it doesn't know the difference between real or imagined. So these threats, we need to clear them out. So if they don't have a way to do this, like if they're not doing some kind of mindfulness exercise, they don't have something like the brain tap or something like that, then they need to seek out some help or seek out some social group that's going to help them to get rid of this energy, because our body holds this energy. It's just like people will tell you, they'll say, I needed a good cry. And that cry actually released all that energy from the body, so they felt better afterwards. But, sometimes we just hold on to that energy. And if we don't, that's why they're getting sick, because the immune system gets suppressed during these times of high anxiety and fear. Well, I'm incapable of crying. Am I going to be okay? Yeah, you'll be all right. All right. Thank you very much. You're not supposed to cry, right? So, no. But the women out there that need to cry, we all, it's a natural response to the body. Some people don't have to cry, but you just have, we do what we call a psychological sigh. People do this normally. You might be talking to somebody, they get frustrated and they go, they just let it out. That's your body releasing that tension. And you can do that. What I would recommend people doing that are in that place, or if you know somebody, is they just sit down and they just relax and they just take a deep breath in and they just let out that psychological sigh. Do that for a few minutes, even though it seems kind of weird. It's going to release that tension from the body, from the tissues of the body, so that they can relax and get the benefits they need from their recovery. All right. So what if like James Woods or whoever else lost their house in Malibu? What if they call you and say, Dr. Patrick Porter, I'm all stressed out. I just had my house burned down. Well, you'd recommended like a mindfulness exercise. What does that look like? Well, you can do 3 different kind of breathing exercises that are free. They can do them right now. You do the psychological breathing in the morning, and you do what they call a box breath, which means you just sit down, put on some classical music. You can get that free on the internet or on their phone, and put it in the background. And even though at first it's going to be hard because you might even start quaking. Your body might start shaking. And then at lunchtime, maybe you can do something called the box breath, which is you breathe into the count of 4, you hold to the count of 4, you breathe out to the count of 4, and you hold it out to the count of 4. This is something the Navy SEALs do when they're going on deployment. Imagine you have to go you're 6 people and you're going to go attack a ship. There's a lot of stress and frustration there. So they learn that they could control their anxiety and fear by using that breath. And then tonight when they go to sleep, there's a breath technique called the 4-8 breath, where you breathe into the count of 4 and you breathe out to the count of 8. And as you breathe out to the count of 8, you just kind of visualize that like a energy rushing from the top of your head down to the bottom of your feet, and you'll find that you'll get into that deep sleep, because we need to. The brain, if it doesn't get level 4 sleep, most people aren't sleeping anyway. 2/3 of the world isn't sleeping. So imagine you just lost your house, and you don't know, like you said, your whole life's there. Your brain is trying to figure out all those connections. How are they going to get there? They lost their photo albums. They lost maybe a lot of other assets, that are real valuable to them. Their brain is spinning, so they need to calm that down and know that, the old saying is, unfortunately, this too will pass, but time doesn't really cure anything. It's the activities that put it behind us. So we need to do activities to get our brain focused on what can you do today, and focus on one step at a time. Don't try to take the old saying is don't eat an elephant in one bite. Cut it into pieces, and over time you can eat the whole elephant.
All right, Dr. Patrick Porter, how do they find your work online?
They can go to braintap.com. They get some free tips there. They can actually download the free app there and start using that tonight as well.
Who needs BrainTap?
Yeah, I think anybody who's under any stress. So I'd say pretty much the whole population.
Thank you very much. Dr. Patrick Porter,
right.
braintap.com. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you.
Just trying to humanize what it looks like to be, of course, obviously a big monetary tragedy, but my parents' house burned down like in 2020, and didn't affect me very much, but they were rocked. Like for about 6 months, they just sort of treaded water and didn't even do anything. It was weird to watch. 800-288-9227 if you have any comments on that. Coming up next, we're going to dig a little deeper into those California wildfires. Some people are starting to point the finger at politics, and while normally I kind of find that abrasive, there may be a big role to play here. We'll dig into it coming up on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Sports fans, James Parker here for the Prize Picks app, and there's a huge game tonight. You already know which one I'm talking about. Texas, Ohio. Someone is going to be very happy. Someone's going to be disappointed. But listen, Prize Picks has your back on this one too. Do you think Quinn Ewers, his number went up? Well, I was talking about this yesterday. It was 238. Now it's 242.5. Is he going to get more or less than that? That's all you do. You take your favorite players, you make a lineup of it, or you could do the opposite. You could say, hey, the quarterback for Ohio, Will Howard, 1.5 passing TDs. Will he get more or less than that? Pick less on it, and then when we stuff him in the face, not only do you win the game, you also get a little extra money for it too. And look, you can play with some house money. Download the Prize Picks app. With your first $5 play, if you use our special promo code WBAP, you get $50 to play with. So you can take, $50 on me and see if you can turn that into some real money while you watch the Cotton Bowl. Wouldn't that be cool? So download the Prize Picks app, promo code WBAP, and thank me later. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank me later. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I promise I'm not a person who likes to just dive in and make everything about politics. And I was kind of ignoring the California wildfire story for a while there, partially because we had our own weather events, our own sort of natural disasters going on. You know, the great blizzard of 2025. We will recover, Dallas strong. But it just keeps getting worse and worse. And I really bristle at both sides when they're like, well, it's clearly Trump's fault. And then Team Red's like, well, this is clearly Gavin Newsom's fault. And maybe Karen Bass, because she's also a Democrat and she's in charge of Los Angeles County or Los Angeles or whatever it is. And so I was trying to sort of ignore that for a while. But people are making some really good points. And people are bringing up some videos and some statements and actual policy changes and differences. Like, well, what happens when you cut the fire department budget by $17 million and then ask for another $49 million cut a week before the fires start? No, well, that's not politics. That just sounds like bad policy changes. What happens when you find out that the guys fighting the fires are going to water hydrants and some of them aren't putting out water? Well, why is that? Well, you find out that we've been in a drought for 9 months. Okay, dig a little deeper. Turns out last year you had record rainfall in California. Your reservoirs were filled up. And instead of holding on to that in case there was a 9-month drought and a fire, you're like, well, we're going to drain this into the ocean. Why? Well, for this little fish. This little fish is about the size of your finger. What is it? The smelt minnow or whatever? Come to find out that's not even native to California. It's an invasive species. What are we doing here? And then on top of all that, flushing your water into the Pacific Ocean. Just in case the Pacific, you don't want it to run out of water. Instead of holding it in your own reservoirs. Good God. And then cutting the budget. It's not just that. There was also a DEI component to this. And it's not that it was an incidental one. It was a celebrated one. Christine Larson is the assistant fire chief for LAFD. And she was in some promotional video talking about how great it is that she's a lesbian of color, I guess. Is that what's important for fighting fires? I'm not a firefighter. I don't know.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better. Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Okay, this already sounds like the worst fireman ever, firewoman ever. Are you kidding me? How focused, how obsessed with race are you that you care what color a paramedic or a fireman is when you're in an emergency? No, Christine says, well, it's important. No, it's not important. No one even really notices. Hang on.
Somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you.
No, it's not. I don't think that. I bet Mike Trainer doesn't think that. I bet you don't think that. I bet Garrett doesn't think that. You would have to be someone who is just ate up with race to even have that enter into the conversation. It's like if someone comes in, it's like, are you white? You kind of look like you might be, I don't know, sort of Syrian, maybe Persian. What's your last name? No one has done that in the history of ambulances and paramedics. You really think anyone cares if you're stuck in a fire and the guy that's trying to axe through the door, that's an Asian. No, just let me burn. I'd rather burn to death than be saved by someone with a different skin tone. That's on one hand dumb, but on the other hand, it really betrays that this is what she cares about. She thinks that's important. I don't think that's important, but she thinks that's important. She is the racist. No one gives a damn what the color is of the person saving your life, whether you're in a fire or having a heart attack or cutting you out of a car accident. No, nobody cares. And at the end, when it's, well, you can't carry my husband out of a fire. Well, you shouldn't have been there. What? So I could just die in a fire. It's more important that we make some women who are obsessed with gender and race feel better about themselves, maybe their sexual orientation too. Meanwhile, grown men die in a fire.
You couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Hey, if you're a fireman who believes this, quit. turn in your resignation today. Start just typing it out on your phone and send that email into your captain or lieutenant or major. Or I don't know what rankings are. Optimus Prime, whatever y'all have. If you're a fireman and you believe this, you don't deserve to be a fireman. You're a danger to society and you're a bad person. You need to reevaluate your entire worldview and change it. Good Lord. This is a country where I have to turn on a football game and see end racism. It takes all of us in the end zones. Even when I'm playing Madden 25, in the end zones on Madden, it says end racism. On the other one, it says it takes all of us. Hey, found a racist here. Oh, can we end her? Oh, no, not actual racism. Just racism against white people and gender discrimination against men and sexual discrimination against straight people. That is not only allowed, it's celebrated around here. How bad does it have to be before it gets called out? This is a bad person. This is a racist person. You're judging people based on the color of their skin more so than their ability to do the job. Carrying a person out of a burning building is not an important metric when choosing your firefighters? Oh, I'm sorry. I disagree. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. We'll go further down the rabbit hole coming up. How much of this fire damage is to be blamed on politics and wokeism and just actual policy preferences by the leaders of California? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, happy Friday, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I mean, does it feel like a Friday, though? I am broke. But my kids didn't go to school until Tuesday because we're still on the tail end of a holiday for no reason, just an extra day off. And then some of you got a day off yesterday, and now maybe are your kids out of school. It's a weird week here. But the summary for today is, yeah, we're still really cold. California is on fire. Trump's a free man. Yeah, the sentencing hearing, if you're just joining us, Trump's sentencing hearing was this morning on the 34 guilty counts, and his crimes were so heinous, such a disaster, such a danger to the public at large, that he got absolutely no jail time. Just nothing, no probation. He didn't get detention. He didn't get Saturday school. He didn't get community service. He didn't get a slap on the wrist. He doesn't have to give up his Chuck E. Cheese tokens. Garrett, you know they don't do Chuck E. Cheese tokens anymore? Okay. Just checking. Because there's a gap. There's some older people that don't know that. They don't know. They think, well, they don't do tokens anymore? How do they do it? You swipe a card. All right, so the big story, though, that we're focusing on right now, if you have any comments on it, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. I know a lot of people care because they keep sending me videos and comments, and y'all got some strong opinions. Precisely because, look, I understand fires are not political. Fires are not Team Red or Team Blue, and you can do everything perfect and still have wildfires. But the response to the wildfires is getting a lot of criticism, and also the focus on the LAFD, Los Angeles Fire Department, been getting a lot of attention. I wish I could remember who sent me this first, or maybe I just found it on my own. This is from the NBC affiliate. I believe that's KTLA, talking about how it's so great that the new chief at the LA Fire Department is a lesbian.
I'm super inspired.
She took time out of her already busy schedule to tell us about her vision for the department's future, one that includes a 3-year strategic plan to increase diversity.
People ask me, well, what number are you looking for? I say, I'm not looking for a number. It's never enough.
Out of 3,300 city firefighters, only 115 are women right now.
So?
She's already looking at ways to change that.
Hang on a second. I am tired of the prevailing narrative of mainstream media and Team Blue whenever they see any sort of industry or job that is filled with straight white men, that's a problem that needs to be solved. Oh my God, we're overrepresented in some industries. You could say that about every demographic, but you never see the opposite. You never see KTLA is going to go into your local school and be like, oh, excuse me, 78% of our public school teachers are women. We've got to fix that. Well, what number are you looking for? We need to get that number as low as possible. That sounds like you're pretty sexist, isn't it? It is. Sexism against men is still sexism. Anyway, we continue.
She's quick to point out that doing so has a greater purpose, attracting the best and brightest for the job.
They feel included, they feel valued, and they feel part of a cohesive team.
Hang on. I don't care if randos who are not in the fire department don't feel included or valued. The fire department isn't there to make sure insecure people, just randos out in the population, feel fulfilled in their life's work. You know what their job is? To fight fires. That's the only thing that matters. Oh, I'm sorry if some people don't feel good about it. Is the fire department better off? Are we better equipped to fight fires? Yes, no, that's really the only answer we're looking for.
The chief also checks another box when it comes to inclusivity and diversity at this department. She's a proud member of the LGBTQ community.
That just kind of opens the door of people that thought, wow, I didn't even know that was an opportunity for me.
Who are these people? Stop telling. Are you telling them that? Are you telling people, well, look, if you're gay, you can't be a fireman? No one. I've never heard anyone say that sentence. I've never heard of any of that anti-gay fireman discrimination lawsuits or anything. This is totally made up. No one cares. And so you don't want to hear me get upset. You want to hear Megyn Kelly get upset. She's got her own little show on Sirius XM so she can say cuss words now. Don't worry, Garrett, I bleeped them out. But this is her little 1-minute response.
Who gives a if the fire chief is gay? I'm sorry, but who gives a flying fig about who she likes to sleep with? Can you fight the fires, madam?
A fig?
That's the relevant question. We don't care about your lady parts, and we don't care who you want having access to them. Can you fight fires? Can you make sure there's water in the fire hydrants? When you realize in Ventura County, this is a massive problem. When you realize that California is going through a drought where they haven't had rain in weeks and months, I don't care who turns you on. Under this woman, Ms. Crowley, the department created a diversity, equity, and inclusion bureau to train firefighters not on refilling the hydrants or what to do when they're empty, but on the importance of DEI.
Right, and that's sort of my focus. The one thing I want people to take away from this today is that what's more important in being an effective fire department? Having lesbians or water? Interesting. Well, let's hear from our local congressional representative, Jasmine Crockett. She was on CNN last night with my boy Scott Jennings. He's got the greatest job in all of media. He's the one sensible guy on CNN. He just says like the truth and then watches fireworks go off around him for the next 4 minutes. So you'll hear Scott Jennings and then Dallas's own Jasmine Crockett on CNN last night.
Might have recall a news story from last year. There was some interest in the fire departments and the firefighters in California. And the interest was that there were too many white men who were firefighters. And we need to have a program in California to make sure we don't have enough white men as firefighters. So we have DEI, we have budget cuts, and yet,
first off, you hear all the consternation, you hear all the backlash. All he did was describe what every DEI program is. It's like, can we take a certain job sector and make sure there's fewer white males in it? That's just a reframing, but it's true. Anyway, they can't stand that.
Your house is burning down. How much do you care what color the firefighters are?
You can respond and then
listen. I am so tired. You know what? There was an article that just came out that said that actually the most educated demographic in this country right now is Black women. So let me be clear. Because you are a woman, or because I know that some of the right has been sharing these photos of the fact that I believe that the fire chief may be a woman or something, that has nothing to do with it. We are looking at qualifications. What diversity, equity, and inclusion has always been about is saying, you know what? Open this up. Don't just look at the white men. Open it up and recognize that other people can be qualified. And the fact that we want to, at a time when people are dying, decide that a country of immigrants is failing or people are dying because the same very people that built this country, because the last time I checked, y'all didn't say that anything was wrong with the White House. And I can promise you it was my ancestors that built the White House. So listen, if we have been good enough to build this country, we are good enough to serve and die overseas, we are good enough to serve in other ways. And the fact that people actually decide that they want to engage in public service, whether it's sitting in Congress or whether it's serving on the fire department or the police department, should not be an issue. The fact is, stop trying to act as if only white men are the ones that are capable. Because right now you're sitting at a table with 3 very capable Black women.
Can you carry me out of a house, Jasmine Crockett? Can you? So let me get this straight. Because some slaves were involved with building the White House, then grown white men can just die in a fire because we refuse to hire firemen who can actually save their lives based on the color of their skin. Yeah, that makes sense. Well, certainly put me in my place. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Like they're telling me to die in a fire and no one's running to my defense. No one's like, well, we can't defend white men. We can't defend straight men. We can't defend men. Sissies. All right, coming up next, we'll talk about some of the health effects from fire. Because, look, I know we're not on fire, but we have wildfires, and we have to deal with stuff like this from time to time. So we'll talk about how to keep yourself safe if you are near a fire, coming up next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. The fires are raging in California, and chances are you've seen a fire. You've probably seen a grass fire or forest fire or a house fire or some neighbor building next to your work caught on fire. How dangerous is that smoke? How much trouble are these people in when you talk about health-wise? You know, once you get out of the fire, how much smoke do you have to breathe before it's a problem? Let's ask Summit Rye. Welcome to the James Show. How much smoke can you breathe before it becomes a health problem?
Hi, thank you for having me. The amount of smoke that you breathe, any level of it, is actually really dangerous. Firefighters are often dealing with fires over there where you have, a house burning or a building burning, and that alone is sufficient to increase the incidence of cancer in firefighters up to 3x. The thing about the carcinogens that are released, which include what are known as PAHs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, that's a chemical that's created when vegetation is burned. And with wildfires of this nature, when you have trees, plants, flowers, all burning across the entire county, the amount of carcinogens, cancer-causing compounds that are released into the air is extremely dense and extremely heavy. There's a second element that for modern society is now going to start to come into play, and we're seeing some problems with that, which is that lithium-ion batteries, rechargeable batteries, those that we have in our laptops, our iPads, our iPhones, our Androids, our tablets, and now with electric vehicles like Tesla. When those burn, those release an enormous amount of off gases. Those off gases are also of concern right now.
Hey, I'm sorry. So what's an off gas?
It's the gas that is released by burning something.
Okay.
So when the battery burns, the gas that comes out, that's called off-gassing. And so those gases that are coming out by burning those batteries combined with the carcinogens at this scale makes any level of exposure really dangerous. The reason for that is, as human beings, we are living biological organisms. We constantly have cellular turnover as long as we're alive. Our old cells die, new cells are formed. Our old cells die, new cells are formed, so on and so forth throughout our life. When you have this type of exposure, these carcinogens that get into your body, which can get in through inhalation, which can get in through your skin, so people in LA should keep themselves generally covered, no shorts, no T-shirts, no tank tops, because they can seep in. When that gets into your body, it causes that cellular turnover to potentially have DNA damage and create mutated precancerous cells. In a normal exposure, the degree of exposure is nothing like this. You don't have thousands and thousands of homes burning, tens, hundreds of thousands of acres. With this level of exposure, because of the toxicity that's coming in with those carcinogens, you're going to have potentially some damage to your cells. Normally, your body, your immune system, specifically white blood cells, will kill those sort of mutated precancerous cells. That is why everyone doesn't develop cancer. However, unfortunately, once in a while, those kind of mutated precancerous damaged cells can multiply out of control, evade your immune system, and that is when a tumor is born. In a situation like this, where you have such mass destruction occurring and such dense toxic gassing, toxic compounds in the air, because the exposure is so high, the degree to which you will develop sort of those precancerous mutations increases substantially, which means your immune system's job now became a lot harder to catch all of it. And it is more likely that your immune system will unfortunately miss it, which means some of those cells will evade it and start to multiply and unfortunately start to form tumors. So I think we will see cancer rates go up.
So what do you recommend people do who've already been exposed? Just increase cancer screenings?
Yes, I think they need to increase screenings. I think the problem with that is in today's world, there's only 5 recommended screenings. You have mammograms for breast cancer, you have pap smear for cervical cancer, you have colonoscopy for colorectal cancer, you have PSA for prostate cancer, and you have lung CT for lung cancer. There is nothing generally, historically, that is recommended for pancreatic, liver, bladder, esophageal, stomach, adrenal, skin, brain, so on and so forth. I mean, that is why we at Cancer Check Labs, where I'm the CEO and founder, developed a blood test over the last 15 years that we just released 6 months ago that is a pan-cancer screen that will allow you from a simple blood draw to screen for all of those cancers.
Well, hang on a second. Isn't that what Elizabeth Holmes said?
Elizabeth Holmes said something different. Elizabeth Holmes said that with a drop of blood, I can essentially diagnose any condition.
Right.
First of all, that doesn't make any sense. All right. I don't know why people believed her. A drop of blood is statistically insignificant. We don't use a drop of blood. We use 40 milliliters of blood.
Whoa.
Second, Elizabeth Holmes came in, which is 4 vials, 4 tubes. It's half of what you would do in an annual physical because you need statistical significance. Second, we developed the technology over the last 15 years, have 3 issued patents by the U.S. government, a 4th one pending, and we have a federally compliant lab under CLIA, which has been inspected and certified by HHS, Health and Human Services. So I would draw massive distinctions between what a kid in school did, came out and claimed, which didn't make any sense, versus what's been developed here, which is now in the market.
So if you have one of these jobs where you're exposed to chemicals, you mentioned firefighters, that's probably the obvious one, but there's people who are like welders or work in other shops where they're exposed to emissions. Advanced cancer screenings, what do you recommend for those guys?
They should be taking Cancer Check Labs tests. They should go to cancerchecklabs.com and they should get a blood test to get screened. One of the other things we did recently, earlier last year, was create a 501c3, a nonprofit called Save a Firefighter. You can go to saveafirefighter.com and you can learn about all the exposure that firefighters have to cancer. And I would recommend that everyone make a donation and try to be the heroes behind these heroes. We are attempting to provide free screening to all firefighters across the country because, again, they face up to 3 times the incidence of cancer to be the first responders trying to save our homes, our families, our communities. Firefighters don't generally die from fires and collapsing buildings. They die from cancer. It represents 72% line of duty death, almost 3 out of 4. It is the number one cause of line of duty death, cancer. And it is because of this exposure. And when they have this exposure, it's generally not at the scale of a wildfire. It's usually at the scale of a home or a building burning down, and even that is sufficient to, again, increase their incidences up to 3x. So anyone that wants to support the firefighters, I really would recommend that they go to saveafirefighter.com and make a donation to help our firefighters get screened. Separate from that, if you yourself are in that environment, you need to get screened. So go to cancerchecklabs.com and get screened.
Samit Rai, thank you very much. Also, saveafirefighter.com. I didn't even know this website existed. Thank you for telling me about it.
Of course. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Y'all stay healthy out there. I know a lot of you have jobs that you love, but you just have to put up with inhaling weird fumes. I knew some firefighters. That was a concern of theirs. Also, some of my welder friends, big concern of theirs because they just got to huff all that stuff up all day, depending on what they're working on. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227, coverage of the California wildfires and more coming up. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, most of the severe weather, I don't even want to call it severe, just the winter weather. We're not used to ice falling out of the sky around here. It looks like that's done. That's done. It's going to get below freezing again tonight, so let's not totally disregard the fact that there may be ice on the bridges and some dangerous driving conditions. And really, it's more of a severe message for those who are a little bit north or a little bit northwest of us. But also something that comes with the dreary weather and the lack of sunshine, just that general winter malaise, is depression, maybe even feelings of isolation. Lee Richardson's back on with the Brain Performance Center. And I've never thought this was a real thing. People really get depressed during the winter. I don't.
Oh, a lot of people do. You know, look outside your window today. We've got those dark skies. Where is the sun? And a lot of us need that. We need that interaction with the vitamin D and sunshine.
Well, I think some of y'all just don't sunburn as easily. I understand if you're in Alaska and you have to do like 13 hours a day in the dark and you only get like 9 hours of sunlight or whatever the math works out to. But down here, is it really that big of a deal?
Well, I think depression, there are a lot of factors that go into depression. And I think social connection is one of them. And in the winter months, when we're not as able to get out and socialize and participate in group activities, that plays a part in it. A lot of people don't like to go outside. I mean, you're right. Our weather today has been mildly inconvenient, but a lot of people don't even want to go outside because they're going to have to put rock salt down, or they're afraid when they get in their car what's going to happen. So I think depression's all a state of mind, and a lot of that comes from fatigue and a lack of emotional engagement.
So what are your fixes for it?
I think number one is, and I think it's easy to isolate ourselves these days. And sometimes we can do it and we can say, oh, just need some me time. But instead of hanging out with TikTok, you know, shift your social activity from online to in person. I think that could make a big difference. And I think that participate in some community activities, and whether that's going to a football game or whether that's going to a school play, whatever it is, engage with others.
Well, this is something I find frustrating is I have a lot of people reach out to me saying, you know, yeah, I don't have much of a social life going on, or I have, you know, like 4 friends, or, you know, they feel isolated. Some coworkers, like I'm divorced and my kids are grown. I just go home to an empty house and fiddle around in my garage and watch Netflix. I hear a lot of people saying that. It's like, well, if there's a whole bunch of you people who are looking to have friends, then why don't y'all just meet up? And so,
you know,
go ahead.
Well, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we've kind of just stopped wanting to hang out together.
Well, see, you can't have it both ways. You can't gripe about being, you know, socially isolated and then not hang out. And it's part of the reason I want to do so many meetups. And in fact, since we're on the topic, I think I found a Fort Worth meetup location. Shaw's on Magnolia, you know, that little strip on Magnolia where they have a bunch of bars and whatnot. Does that sound cool? All you Fort Worth people who are griping, and this is one of the instances where it comes up, Lee, is people like the idea of a James Show meetup, not necessarily to meet me, but to meet each other.
And that's great that you provide that, because we need a reason. Unfortunately, we need a reason to get out and do something. We're choosing self-imposed solitude, and it's certainly not helping us. It results in depression, anxiety, frustration.
Well, I'm not trying to bring politics into everything, but is there a part that politics is playing in this? Because if one side of the population thinks the other side perceives them as Nazis and racists and bigots, you know, they would be a little hesitant to be open and be themselves around them. On the other side, if the other half of the population looks at the side one and says they're a bunch of terrible people who want to kill babies, you know, I think maybe people put too much pressure or emphasis on politics.
Oh, I agree, and I don't think that it's the elephant in the room. We have to talk about it. It has polarized us to such extreme degrees that it creates distance.
So how do we fix that?
Well, we don't have to talk about it all the time. We don't have to follow. We don't have to follow it online all the time. I think that we need to, all of us, including me, I need to set some boundaries. There are people that I know have opposite opinions than I do. Why do I bring that up?
Well, I think another way that we could alleviate all the tension between like myself and my acquaintances who don't agree with me politically is they just changed their mind and started agreeing with me. If they all just admitted I was right and we all move forward from there, there'd be a lot less tension.
Well, you just need a bunch of know-it-alls that thinks you're right. That's all.
All right. Well, problem solved. Lee Richardson, how do they find your work outside of WBAP?
They can find us online. I'm on LinkedIn and the Brain Performance Center on Facebook and Instagram.
Thank you very much, Lee Richardson on The James Show. All right, coming up next, we're going to dive right back into the hot headlines here. There's a couple of updates that happened since the James Show started on the California wildfires, just updating you on some numbers. And then there was an episode of the Joe Rogan podcast that was released this morning, and someone already passed it along to me. You guys see what Zuckerberg said. He just admitted that the Biden administration leaned on him to censor vaccine side effects. All right, you'll hear that audio coming up too, so just stick with me. A lot to get to here on The James Show. And if you want to jump in, 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. All right, the ice isn't going to make you wreck your car, but this next story might. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. You've seen that there's a bunch of fires that are going on in California. And, you know, there's a lot of people who try and make political hay about any disaster or whatnot. But there seems to be some legit criticisms, you know, from the policy positions and the decisions that were made by the people who are in charge of such things in California. But let's put that aside. And let's look at the beautiful story of what happened in Oregon. Their neighbors to the north. The people of Oregon were looking down and they're like, look, I know they catch on fire every year, but this is worse than ever. What are we going to do? We got to help our neighbors. And so all these little fire departments from all across Oregon, from towns you don't even know and counties you've never heard of, they don't have a whole lot of extra resources, but these little towns and these little people, they're not rich, but they're going to do whatever they can to go help their neighbors. And it's not like the fire's about to hit Oregon. They're just doing the right thing. They want to help. So crews from all these different counties, Clackamas, Clatsop, Lane County, Lincoln County, Lynn County, Polk, Marion, Multnomah, Washington, Yamhill, all these regular Americans of modest means pulled together. And they got enough money and resources to send 300 firefighters and 75 engines to go help their neighbors in California. Well, this is beautiful. They're not charging them anything. There's no guarantee they're going to get paid. They're just doing the right thing. They're volunteering. So when the first group of 60 fire engines crossed into California, they got pulled over. Excuse me, what's the problem here? Well, you know, this isn't romper room, guys. We have laws around here. And it turns out that they were stopped and ordered to submit to a Department of Transportation inspection in Sacramento. So instead of just driving straight down to the fire and helping people who are losing everything, what do we have, like 5-10 people dead already? No, you got to drive to Sacramento first. And then later in the day at 4:30, we got you scheduled for an inspection. And then if you clear the inspection, then you got to go drive another 400 miles to actually go fight the fire. California, does your stupidity know no bounds? When people are sending 60 fire trucks to help you fight the biggest fire your state has ever had, the most damaging fire that I've seen, don't pull them over and don't make them go through an inspection. What do you think they're going to accidentally, we thought that was water. That was unleaded gasoline. My bad. Oh, man. Good thing we had that inspection. Idiots. Good Lord. Even if you have a dumb rule like that, at least read the room and look around you and say, no, you know what? We will waive the inspection requirement this time around because we consider it an emergency. Yeah, it's just a little bit of an emergency. And one of the other more convincing pieces in the body of evidence we have coming out of California that a lot of this does lay on the shoulders of the leaders is there's a handful of fires. And some of them are being handled better than others. The part of that whole Los Angeles metropolitan area that butts up against the hill called Pasadena, well, they've had the fire come over the hill at them, but they didn't lose, 32,000 homes. They don't have 10 killed in their wildfires. They're handling it pretty good. Well, Dr. Drew, remember him from Loveline? He lives in Pasadena, and he was making that point. All these people that are dying and Pacific Palisades and all these other areas. That's not happening where he's at. I'm wondering what the difference is. Maybe they have better leaders.
Think about the fact that I live in Pasadena. We were hit hard here. Do you hear complaints about Pasadena? Pasadena functions exceedingly well. We have a good mayor, good police chief, good functioning fire department. It was devastation what happened here, but things work here. We aren't complaining. But there in Los Angeles, the mayor was absent.
Yeah, okay. So you don't have all the structures being burned and you don't have the people dying. But do you have enough women? Do you have enough lesbians? More importantly, Dr. Drew, let's talk about the genitals of the people fighting the fire. See, doesn't that sound dumb when the rubber meets the road and you're actually in an emergency situation? Oh, it's fine to be all pro DEI when nothing's on fire. But things are on fire now. It's not that important anymore. But then Dr. Drew made another great point. And damn it, I wish I'd have thought of this first. Where's the climate change people on that? People complain about climate change, causing the fire. How about the climate change caught by doing such a poor job fighting the fire?
If they are interested in climate change, for instance, let's lean into that. Okay, climate's changing. Your concern is CO2 in the environment. Between 2020 and 2024, you just ruined all of the progress you've made with CO2 restrictions in this state across 25 years times a factor of 2. Just with these fires. These fires, if you're actually worried about CO2 in the air, these fires should be your first priority. And in fact, they're doing nothing to reduce them or make the next one less devastating.
Right. Burning coal or oil or even brush, that creates CO2. And oh, look at all this CO2 that's going up in the atmosphere. No. Having that water for the Delta smelt or the smelt minnow, whatever it is, that's not more important. You're creating carbon. So even by your own environmental paradox, you're wrong. Coming up next, you'll hear from an expert on fire defense, wildfire defense, and see what he thinks about the job that's being done, not just with the fire, more importantly, the preparation and the reaction to the fire. That's coming up next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. Well, it's weird because some of us still have snow on the ground. I just got a picture from McKinney where there's still a little bit hanging out in the backyard. I'm very jealous here, but then you turn on the TV and we have wildfires raging even worse than they were at the beginning of the week in Los Angeles. And when we talk about whether or not they're doing a good job preparing for them or fighting them or whatnot, you and I don't do this. We don't have any expertise in wildfire defense, but my next guest does. Ted Ralston. Let's talk about these wildfire fighting techniques. I hear a lot of criticism for the job they're doing over there. How much of their ability to fight it is based on things they're doing now versus things they did in preparation?
Well, the only way to stop a wildfire from starting is to proactively stop it from happening and proactively cut foliage, proactively harden homes, all the things that need to be done. We've built our homes and our into the WUI interface, which is where the wild hits the city. And by doing that, you're always going to have those problems. I think the brave men and women that are fighting the fires are doing everything they can. I think that there have been some government missteps. Not having water, for example, available is a huge misstep. That's not on the fire departments. None of this is on the people who fight the fires. It's the preparation for the fires.
Right. So, yeah, we do have a problem with no water, but that's not anything that could even be solved now. That was a mistake that was made, 6 months ago, a year ago, something before that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So it sounds like in many ways their hands are tied in fighting this thing. And, of course, that sounds like it's contributing to making it worse. How have they gotten worse at fighting fires than previous years?
I don't think they are worse. I think that part of the problem is the technology they're using is decades old. And I'm not talking about the equipment. I'm talking about the actual fire retardants. It's decades old technology. It's toxic. It can't be used in a lot of areas because of the toxicity. I'm sure everybody listening has read all the press regarding the lawsuits and the problems associated with that.
So
go ahead.
So if you are one of these houses and the back of your property butts up against nature and it's coming at you, is there anything you can do to give yourself a fighting chance? Can you dig a ditch or can you do a pre-burn just on the individual level? What would you recommend?
Well, no, you can't do a pre-burn because a lot of those would end up starting new fires.
Right.
You're talking about areas that may not have had rain for months. I'm with Mighty Firebreaker, and we have, for example, an EPA-approved technology that's totally natural. That's a proactive technology. You would spray during the hot, dry months, and it forms a barrier and prevents embers from catching combustible materials on fire. And it's the embers driven by the wind is why you see so many hot spots and so many new fires breaking out.
So how is Mighty Firebreaker different than just a big old fire extinguisher?
Well, you're talking proactive. It's impossible to put these fires out once they start. What you have to do is you have to treat it with a product like Citratech, which is Mighty Firebreaker's product, ahead of time so the embers can't ignite the combustible materials, the trees, the grass, the garden, can't get into you want to spray your vents. You want to harden your home with fireproof windows. You want to use your screening on your gables and on your roof vents need to be micro mesh, which protects it from embers getting into your home. It's not the raging flames that burn most things down. It's the miles and miles of wind-driven embers. Keep in mind, these fires create their own weather systems and their own wind. Even if it wasn't driven by 100-mile-an-hour winds, they create their own wind.
Yeah, you have an 8,000 acre fire. There's going to be a little bit of air movement with it. You know, I have seen some of these homes where there's a row in a neighborhood where every home is gone except for one of them in the middle. And I just have to assume this guy must have just built his house different. Maybe he gave himself a little more space between the property line, and so I was trying to read into that. And there are people who have anti-fire building techniques, and I didn't even know that was really a thing.
Oh, absolutely. That's called fire hardening.
Yes.
A lot of that has to do with the materials your home is made of. A lot of it has to do is if you keep the combustible materials far enough away from your home. You know, a lot of times it's a combustible material outside the home that creates a large amount of heat and will blow a window in or cause the home to catch on fire. Also, it can be luck of the draw. It could be an ember came in their roof gable or their roof vent. So, you know, there is no rule of thumb other than being proactive and treating your property with something that is not toxic and will keep your children and your pets and your animals safe and won't hurt the environment. And that's the problem. There hasn't been anything like that up until now.
Does building your home out of brick help much?
It could. Yeah, it could. You know, brick obviously is going to be better than wood siding. You know, metal roofs, everybody think are great. Sometimes they create fires too because you'll get embers and heat on top of them and it'll start the wood underneath on fire. It's like putting a frying pan on your stove.
Yeah, I hear you.
Typically stucco's good.
Well, let's talk about the chemicals in this, because you said it's not toxic in the way some of the other fire retardants are. And if y'all have this, why isn't everyone using the non-toxic version of a fire retardant?
Decades-old technology is baked in with the government and the approvals and everything else. And we all know that technology takes time to take hold.
I hear you. Well, it's called Citratech. That almost sounds like an energy drink. I can't drink this, can I?
You actually could. I wouldn't,
shut up.
because it's potassium based, and it could cause you problems there. You probably wouldn't cramp for a while.
Okay.
But it is non-toxic. It's the only EPA approved fire retardant in the world.
Interesting stuff. All right. Well, how do we find more information on you guys? MightyFirebreaker.com you mentioned earlier.
To citrasafe.com, and we're also a wholly owned subsidiary of a public company, stock symbol GEVI.
What was the first website again?
I'm sorry, Citrasafe, CITROSAFE.com, or we're a subsidiary of a public company, GEVI.
Thank you very much. All right, I appreciate the insight, Ted Ralston, experts on fighting wildfires. Thanks, sir. I'm not going to drink it. I'm not going to mix it with bourbon and try it either. These were all jokes. Children, if you heard me, this is not something you try at home. That was just the man on the radio trying to make funnies. All right, coming up next, I have some more audio from you from the, it's sort of fire related. We'll talk about it next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Oh, if you can get a chance every once in a while, check out the video stream of the show, and you can get a little extra sauce with the show. A good example here, Ken over here on Facebook just puts up, here, I can just share out this whole chat window. It says, come on, James, there's no news about firefighters stopped at the border. Report real facts. So a couple posts, 3 posts later, I throw up the link in the comments so everyone can see. And then I put the pull quote from the article that I'm reading from kval.com, just so you know I'm not making this up. It says, before arriving in Southern California, the teams completed a routine safety check with Cal Fire in Sacramento. These inspections ensure all engines and emergency scenes are equipped, mechanically sound, and able to respond. So I guess that means I gotcha. Why would I make that up? Why would I mean, maybe someone else made it up and I saw a hoax tweet and I just passed it along without looking it up, maybe. But who would make, I don't know. Just why not look it up yourself? You know, you could have Googled it your damn self before making the comment over here on Facebook, accusing me of not reporting real facts. I'd already looked it up. Did you think I was making that up? Or I'm at least looking at some website. I'm looking at something. For this time, it was a tweet from Lars Larson that you follow through. Goes to KVAL Channel 13, wherever the hell that is. Los Angeles, I assume. Man, can't even look it up. Could have saved yourself a little embarrassment there, Ken. One person we haven't heard from on the James Show yet is this woman who is in charge of Los Angeles. And I don't know. I would have played this yesterday, but we had the whole snow thing going. And then also I was kind of waiting. Maybe I wouldn't get to it today because I'm still looking up on this lady's background. Everything I'm trying to dig up more on her biography because she seems like a truly contemptible woman, like a woman who does not deserve to be in charge of the second biggest city in America. It sounds like she's a communist. She at least spent most of her life identifying as a communist. I didn't go find any come to Jesus moment or any conversion point where she admits, oh no, I'm not a communist anymore. She's made trips to Cuba. And when I say trips, I don't mean 1 or 2 here or there. She's made multiple repeated trips over and over to Cuba. And look, one time she went, it was with when Obama and Michelle and the kiddos went and he hung out and he went to that baseball game with Raul Castro. You remember that? It was on that trip. Karen Bass was one of the people that went on that one. Now, she was in Congress at the time, but she has spoken at the eulogies of people who were avowed Communist Party members. She's even said this guy who's a communist is her mentor. And so she seems like a truly just, as far as politics goes, just as wrong can be. I'm not saying she's a bad person on the inside. I don't know. Maybe she just genuinely thinks this is the best way to go about making the world a better place. But it does betray the fact that she has terrible judgment. And she's old enough to know better. If you're a 21-year-old in college and you're wearing a Che Guevara t-shirt and talking about, communist things and revolution and whatnot, that's fine. You don't know what's going on. But if you make it to age like 30 and you're still saying that, it's really questionable. If you make it to age 40, there's something wrong with you. If you make it to age 50, you're brain damaged. If you're a communist past age 50, you've seen enough of the world. You really shouldn't. You're not even trying to know better. So the crazy part about this is I'm going to play you some audio, and this guy's going to be asking her questions. And so for the setting, this is yesterday when she lands. Now, you and I already knew about the fires, and she knew the fires were coming before she took off and went to Ghana. Why does she need to go to Ghana? She doesn't, okay? It's just a fun little trip. And, communists get to take trips and do important things and burn trillions of tons of CO2. Not like you filthy plebeian mass. Do you have your permit? But when she gets back, he's asking her basic questions. And I'm not sure Karen Bass has ever had adversarial questions coming at her from the media. The media's always been on her side. And that is the brilliance of being from a hyper blue bubble like Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, all the media around you is blue. All the other politicians are team blue. Everyone at the state level's team blue. So you never get really challenged. Even when you go into the national media, they're on your team. So this may be the first time that she actually has someone coming up asking some ball busting questions. Pun not intended. But she doesn't have answers, so she just clams up. But it's wild because you didn't know you were going to be asked these questions. No one told you when you were on your way back from Ghana on a, what is that, like a 17-hour flight, that there's going to be questions about this fire? Even when you're coming into Los Angeles to land, you can look out the window and see, oh my God, that's a lot of fire. I better have an answer for that. So that's the crazy part. Not that she clams up and doesn't answer. Not that she's not being transparent. Not that she's hiding from, the American people and her constituents. It's that she doesn't have an answer. Like, how dumb do you have to be to not be ready for the fire questions when you land in the middle of a wildfire?
Do you owe citizens an apology for being absent while their homes were burning? Do you regret cutting the fire department budget by millions of dollars, Madam Mayor? Have you nothing to say today?
She's not across the room. She's right in front of him.
Nothing to say to the citizens today?
She's like arm length from him, just ignoring him.
Elon Musk says that you're utterly incompetent. Are you considering your position?
Say something.
Madam Mayor, have you absolutely nothing to say to the citizens today who are dealing with this disaster? No apology for them?
See, what
do you think you should have been visiting Ghana while this was unfolding back home?
See, this is what happens when an NPC is waiting for their new programming. She hasn't been programmed yet. She doesn't know what to say. She hasn't been told. You know what? All you got to say, lady, just to cut through, because this goes on for like 2 minutes. All you got to say is, maybe I shouldn't have gone to Ghana, or I got back as fast as I could. I just want to let the people know that I'm going to be doing everything in my power to limit the damage from these fires as much as possible. I appreciate everyone's help and concern during this time of emergency. She's got nothing. She doesn't know what to say because she's not a real thinker. She's an NPC. Sometimes useful idiots can rise all the way to the top. They just get exposed every once in a while. But this lady who's a lifelong communist, God knows how she got elected mayor of Los Angeles. This has to be converting people. And I'm not the only one to think that. Someone else mentioned that. Garrett mentioned that to me on a break. He's like, don't you think this is going to change a bunch of people's mind? I was like, oh, man. You sound like Adam Carolla on that. He did a great rant on that. Here, I'll play it real quick before we go to break. Adam Carolla.
You guys all voted for Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. You all voted for Gavin Newsom.
Don't worry, I edited it.
And now you get what you get. Oh, now that your house is on fire, well, now you're thinking about something else. Now you want to know what's going on. What's going on around here? You didn't give a about what was going on when other people's houses were on fire, but now you care. So here's what's going to happen. All these people who were deep blue Democrats are now going to have to pull a permit to rebuild. And they're going to get the 28-year-old from the Coastal Commission telling them to go off. And then they're going to vote for Trump or whoever's Trumpian next. You see, they're going to get turned between the part where they go in to the Planning Commission initially and try to pull a permit to the time the first load of lumber, the first load of 2x4s is dropped off on their lot where their house formerly stood. It's going to be 3 years and 1,000 permits and 1,000 arguments and 1,000 discussions with the Coastal Commission, not to mention little tidbits that they didn't think about, like Carson Daly. You want a swimming pool? Yep. Got to be double hulled. Really? Yeah. Well, why? Well, what if water leaches out and gets into the groundwater table? Carson Daly had to build a swimming pool like a modern day oil tanker. Had to put like a double hulled. That's all right. It'll just cost $500,000 for a swimming pool. Like that, they're going to be when they start getting the regulation, they're going to go nuts. And when they start running into the bureaucracy and the red tape, they're going to start going nuts, and they're going to vote for Rick Caruso next time because they want to get. That's all Trump says is we're going to pull back the regulations. We're going to free people up. They're going to find out. They're going to get bit by their own snake. They're going to convert.
A lot of people are thinking that. That's almost word for word what Garrett said earlier. What do you think? You think it's going to convert some people? How bad? How many houses have to burn down before people are like, maybe we should choose different leadership. Maybe that wasn't the way to go. We're going to find out the hard way, aren't we? 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we're playing Name That Artist for 2 tickets to see Styx. Sweet. They're going to be on the Brothers in Rock tour with Kevin Cronin and Don Felder. Dos Equis Pavilion August 1st. More information, go to livenation.com. But coming up next, we're going to play Name That Artist. So if you're interested in those tickets, call in right now. 800-288-9227. We'll play the montage as soon as we get back. 800-288-9227. We played Name That Artist for Styx tickets next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Come sail away on today's episode of Name That Artist. Yeah, I shoehorned that in there. But in today's episode, we're playing for 2 tickets to see Styx. Brothers in Rock Tour, Kevin Cronin, Don Felder, coming Dos Equis Pavilion. If you're interested, 800-288-9227. For all the people on hold, go ahead and get out a piece of paper and a pen, or maybe put your phone on speaker and open a notepad file so you can type it in. We're going to play the montage, and I want you to type all these in. I'll play the montage twice, but go ahead and start typing it in. We'll make sure we can get a nice clean list so when I go to you, you can just rattle them off. All right, here's your montage for today's Name That Artist. Okay, there it is. There's your montage. Did you get all 10 of those artists? This is the C6 now. People playing at home, you don't have to write it down. You want to give them one more run through of the montage here? All right, if you knew all those in the montage, call in right now. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. This is the C6. And you go ahead. You have plenty of time to clear off your calendar. It's not happening until August 1st. So, ready? Let's do this again. Boom. All right. That is not the Dazed and Confused soundtrack. That is today's episode of Name That Artist. We're playing for tickets to see Styx. Shelly in Plano, you're going to be my first contestant. You ready?
Yes.
All right, let's hear your list. Ready, go.
Eagles.
Yes,
and
Eagles.
Then REO.
Yes.
And then REO Speedwagon.
Got
and
it.
And then Styx.
Yes.
And then Frampton.
Yes.
Oh, and this next one I don't know. I don't know.
He likes
I'm
to
stumped with that
stroke,
one.
if that helps.
He likes to stroke?
Yes. That's one of his songs. I'm not being gross. I couldn't say it if it wasn't.
I know, but I'm just saying. No, sorry, I don't. I have the next one, but I don't have that one. Dang it!
You sound like you're too young to know who Peter Frampton is. Hang on a second. Don't hang up. Ray in the Colony. Shelly in Plano dropped the ball. You ready?
Yes, I am.
All right, let's hear your list.
Start from 1 or 5.
1.
Eagles, REO Speedwagon, Styx, Peter Frampton, Billy Squire,
Ooh,
Def Leppard, Stevie Wonder, Joe Walsh, Terrible Ted Nugent.
Terrible Ted.
And Rick Derringer.
There you go. Oh, my goodness. That was kind of amazing, sir. Excuse me. Why do you say Terrible Ted?
Oh, that's just his nickname. That's how great he is on the guitar.
Oh, okay. Because I'm a huge Ted Nugent fan, man. And the crazy part is, like, when I was growing up, my dad had a couple of crates of records. So there's about 20 records of his that I just grew up listening to, and Ted Nugent was one of them. And then he actually called in when I was doing a show. He's called into like all of my radio shows except for this one so far. I don't even know if he knows I'm on the station, but when he has the ranch outside of Waco, and his wife is from Central Texas. So yeah, he's in fact, he'll probably be popping up pretty soon on the James Show. I should reach out to him. It's amazing because he's so good at guitar, and then he listened to me on the radio, and he just called in. Hey, love your show. It's like, no, you don't. That's too awesome.
He's a great guy.
All right, Ray in the Colony, get on hold here. Garrett will get your information, and then we will email you those tickets. Yeah, Ted Nugent, super nice guy, and he does like the hunting stuff now, and he says all kinds of nice things about Texas, and so flattery works so good on me. Shelly, Plano?
Yes.
Did you get where you messed up?
Yes.
And who was it? Do you remember now?
Billy Squire.
Yes, Billy Squire. All right.
He has a great Christmas song, but yeah.
What's his Christmas song?
Are
we allowed to say it on the radio?
I have the video, but I don't. That tells you how old I am. I know that 80s video. I can picture the 80s video in my head, but what the song is. Everybody should be loved at Christmas or something like that.
I might look that up. All right. Well, thank you very much, Shelly.
Great. You're welcome. Have a good day.
Take it easy in Plano. Y'all probably got snow, you lucky dogs. And someone else mentioned on the break there, oh, you found a place in Fort Worth? You know what? I should have been a little more upfront about that. So I'm looking at Shaw's. It's like a bar and grill on Magnolia. Everybody cool with that? Because when I had the get-together in December, I had more people saying, well, I would have gone if it was in Fort Worth, and actually went to the one that was in Richardson at Richardson Bar and Grill. So where are you at now? Tarrant County? And it's not just Tarrant County, like you people around, it's like, well, I'm in Aledo, or I'm in Weatherford, or I'm in Mineral Wells, or I'm in Argyle or something. How will this work? Is this good enough for you? If you're in Justin, or if you're somewhere out there, is that okay? Shaw's, it's kind of downtown. It's just a little south of downtown. You know where the West Magnolia, where there's a bunch of bars that are set up? I've never hung out there, but I've heard about it, and I looked it up on Google Maps. It looks like the perfect location. And they are actually James Show listeners, most importantly. So is everybody cool with that? You want to have another meetup? Because the date I'm looking at is a Tuesday again. I'm looking at Tuesday, January 28th at Shaw's in Fort Worth. Everybody okay with that? Everybody, can y'all make that? Or am I missing something? Is there like a big football game that day I don't know about? I don't know why it'd be on a Tuesday. But this isn't set in stone. This is me asking you if that's okay. Shaw's, January 28th in Fort Worth. Check it out. Let me know. James at WBAP.com. You can send me a message on Facebook or Facebook Messenger. Call in and yell at Garrett if you want. And, I got another segment left. Stick around. You're going to hear the, what was it? The Adam Carolla? No, I already played the Adam Carolla one. Well, I've got like 4 things here, and I'll pick one of them. All right, here's the one we're going to do. We're going to do Nancy Mace, the congressman, has announced that she's going to go give a speech in another congressman's district. Why is that a big idea? You'll find out in 4 minutes on the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Thank you so much to all the people who sent in pictures and videos of the snow yesterday, and I got a couple today. I didn't get a chance to respond to all of them because I got a lot, and I'm kind of lazy. But thank you. I love looking at all that, especially the kiddos and making snowmen and stuff. There's a little bit of jealousy in there, but that's nice that you people get to share. Because I always feel like I'm talking to you, but I don't get to see what you're doing. So it's nice to get to see what you're doing. So this isn't such a one-way communication. A couple of emails real quick. One comes from Lawrence. He said, just think if it was a pissed off American or immigrant or a terrorist who went to California to set a fire to cause chaos and deplete treasure. Sounds like something the government would do. Well, I mean, kind of the government. I don't know if that's breaking news. But what is that eco group, the Eco Alliance of something or other? And you've seen them in the news in years past. They go set fire to like new subdivisions that are being built out in like the Oregon wilderness because they're trying to save the trees or whatever. And so they're sort of eco-terrorists. You're not crazy for thinking that. There's precedent for that. The eco-terrorist group is a real thing. And it's the same mindset of the people who go throw soup on the Mona Lisa or try and chip away at the Magna Carta or whatever to bring attention to climate change. These people, they don't want development. They don't want trees to be cut down and so you can build a big house there, especially if it's going to be a big 3,500 square foot house with a huge carbon footprint. So you're not totally crazy by thinking that. I don't know why a terrorist would do it. I don't think a terrorist is ever gone and started a fire, just done destruction for destruction's sake without intentionally targeting human beings. Let's see. Anyone else would have a motive to do it? Not really. I mean, an absolute psychopath. Like some guy who just wants to die and light a match and watch the world burn before he goes out? Maybe. But yeah, I don't know. Is this based on some of the viral videos that are going around where someone says, look, someone just threw gasoline into the fire. And look, here's another guy that's trying to set a second fire. And I think there is confirmation that one of them was set by it. I think the Eaton fire, the one that's set in Pasadena. So I have seen reports that one of them was intentionally set. But look, we have these things every summer. Some of them are intentionally set. We're going to have them even if we get rid of every weirdo. So, I mean, that's not something we need to dismiss what you said. But we should also focus on making sure there's water in the hydrants and all the other things people are recommending. All right, Nancy Mace, she's the woman in Congress who's not too happy about the trans woman who got elected to Congress who wants to use the bathroom of his choice. And so she's kind of called him out on the mat and she's making a deal out of it. And she's trying to get a new rule passed saying you have to go to the bathroom that matches your biological gender. And so she's now announced that she is going to go do a speech in the district of the trans congressperson and got a lot of attention because she referred to it on the Tim Pool show here as a mental disorder.
And I'm going to Sarah McBride's district tomorrow night. I'm going to go give a speech. He dresses like a woman. And the media fawned all over him. He made his political career taking selfies in the women's bathroom, bragging about how he's a woman now and should invade our private spaces. And it's sexual abuse, in my opinion. And it's a mental health disorder. If they want to use a bathroom, go find a mental institute and go there.
That is the correct academic term, in fact, mental health disorder.
So not mental disease. You're not psycho. You don't need to be committed. But, just step away from that. I realize that she feels strongly about this because she's a victim of abuse and, she has a reason to want to guard her private space a little more robustly than others. But I recommend you say, I don't want a guy in the bathroom with me, whether or not they're trans. I don't want a straight guy. I don't want a guy in guys' clothes. I don't want a guy in girls' clothes. I don't want a guy that's wearing meatloaf. I don't want a guy in a Maytag box. I just don't want a guy in the bathroom. That's my recommendation, but I'll let you know how that goes. I think she's going to go speak this weekend, and we may talk about it on Monday. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Mark Levin's up next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.